Hello guys, it's Cassim and welcome back to another episode of Student Problems. Want to firstly start off by thanking you very much for joining me. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I hope that something that I share with you today can help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. So I have five different questions which I wanted to talk about today, and hopefully they can help you elevate your life in some way, can give you some guidance in case you're going through a similar situation. The first one is, when was the last time that you cried? The second one is, guys, do you care if a girl is bisexual? The third one is, crying, what do I do? The fourth one is, I need help. And the fifth one is, I feel sick every time someone says they like me. So those are the five topics that I wanted to talk to you about. Before we get into those topics, one thing that I would ask you guys to do is, as you listen to me today give thoughts and my reflections and my advice on these different subjects, I ask you not to look at the context of what I've shared with you. Don't look at the no, let me put it another way. Don't look at the details of what I'm going to share with you, of the problems that these guys are experiencing. What I ask you to do is to look at the overall arch, the overall story, and identifying your own life where that problem might be occurring, or a similar problem. This is what they say to people when you go to like AA. So you want to quit smoking, or you want to quit drinking or drugs. They say to you that, you know, when people go to AA, they sit in circles and they share they reflect how they've been feeling, how their week has been. And one of the things that they say to them is, don't listen to the details of what people have gone through, of how they've overcome what they've gone through. Listen for the strategies, listen for the tactics, listen for the principles. And so when I go through these things, to these different scenarios today, don't listen to the details. So for example, if I talk about the fact that somebody is crying a lot, and they're crying two times every single hour, and you're also crying, but you're crying 7 times every single hour. Clearly, the details, those small difference between you crying 2 hours and 7 hours, doesn't really make it much of a difference. The principles and the advice that I'm going to share is still the same, if that makes sense. So let's not hold back. Let's go straight into the questions, and let me start off with the first one, which is entitled, when was the last time that you cried? So that was a question. There was nothing more to it than when was the last time you cried. So let me talk a little bit about this. So the last time that I cried was yesterday. I cried yesterday because I'm watching a Netflix series called Atypical. I don't know if you've heard of it. And it's basically a Netflix study, program about a boy who is on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, and basically he's a boy who is going through high school, and he's on the verge of turning 18 years of age. And it just basically explores some of the family challenges, some of the personal development challenges that he's gone through and is experiencing. And it's a really interesting program. And I cried because as I was watching it, I felt that there was one of the episodes, there was a bit where the guy wanted to take on responsibility, and he wanted to progress, and he wanted to have more from his life, but the issue is he still had limitations. And as I was watching this, I felt so bad for him, because I felt, God, can you imagine being in a position in your life where you want to do good, you want to succeed, but you genuinely have limitations. Your perception about the world is limited. How far you can move away from. Let me give you an example. So one of the things that he wanted to do is that he wanted to go and study art. The issue is he has a problem with things that are new. He has a problem with things that are not patterned out, things that are not regulated, things that are not familiar. And obviously, imagine going to a brand new university in a completely different part of the country. It's too much for him. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, God, can you imagine being in a situation like that, where it's almost like you're a person who is in a prison, but you know that you can do more, you know that you have potential, but you can never do it. It's like, imagine somebody being a Formula One driver, and they've been able to be a Formula One driver, and they spend every single day around Formula One cars, but they can never drive them. I think that why this resonated with me personally is because I was thinking about my drink driving. Many of you will know I was banned from driving, and I've been banned for driving for the last five years it's been, because I was arrested for drink driving. And I think I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the fact that I felt like almost a prisoner, because I felt like there is so many things that I want to do. I want to drive from here to Copenhagen to see my friend. I was having a conversation, me and my friends, we were supposed to be going to snowbombing, which is a festival in Austria, and loads of flights have been cancelled. So I was thinking, I could have driven there, but I was like, I can't even drive there. And I think I was just feeling within all of that, all of those things happening with me, and then watching him, I just felt like, God, I can really relate to how he's feeling. And so one of the other things that I guess I would mention to you, and I would comment on, is I think that it's perfectly normal for a guy to feel emotional. It's perfectly normal for you to cry. In fact, I recommend that to everybody, that the thing about emotions is emotions are time travelers. If you are feeling an emotion and you block it out, or you pretend that it isn't happening, the emotion is still felt. The emotion becomes trapped. A bit like, can you imagine water flowing down a river, and you put some kind of wood or pillar in the middle of it? The water doesn't disappear all of a sudden. The water is still, basically what it does is it begins to pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up. And you have to understand that us men were exactly the same. If you don't express your emotions, what will end up happening is it will just build and build and build and build and build to the point where you lose control. One day you punch someone, your missus. One day you just have go out into a rage, and people are like, what the hell is wrong with you? Where did it all come from? This is actually part of the reason why I think for men it's really important that we find an outlet for us to express ourselves creatively. So that may be in terms of martial arts, that may be in terms of horse riding, that may be in terms of creating content, but in some way it's really important that we have a vehicle, we have an outlet that we can express some of the higher emotions that we men are experiencing. Because some of you guys, you're experiencing things like inspiration. You're feeling emotional states like love, but there is no outlet to actually express them. And and one of the things that I share with people constantly is find an outlet, whether that be writing poems or would be journaling. Nobody has to ever know that you've written a poem. Who the hell has to know, right? Nobody ever has to know that you've written a journal. You can do it privately, but it's really important that you find that outlet to be able to express yourself creatively, because human beings, we're creative, right? I think most of you guys can agree with me. That's essentially what literally separates humans from all the other species. It's our ability to be creative. And when we're not creative, when we're not manifesting, and we're not actually utilizing that part of the human psyche, that's where many of the internal problems begin to occur. That's when depression, hopelessness, all of those emotional states all are derived from not expressing your emotions to the fullest. And actually, sometimes we don't even know the language to express how we're feeling, which is part of the reason why I say to people that it's important to read, it's important to get yourself educated, because if you don't know what hopelessness looks like or how it manifests itself, you might never even know. Some people don't even know that they're depressed because they don't know how depression manifests itself. They don't know, they just think, oh, I'm feeling tired or I'm feeling really low. They don't actually know how depression manifests itself. Some people feel emotions of love, but they don't actually know how love is expressed, right? It's interesting. So many of you will know that I'm training to be a counselor, and one of the things that we learn in counseling is when you have somebody sat there, sometimes as the person is explaining their problem to you, they will just cry. And the person, you'll ask him, why are you crying? And the person doesn't actually know why they're crying. But part of the reason why they're crying is because they've had all this emotion building up for years and years and years, and sitting in the counsellor's chair or the counsellor's office, this is the first time that they've actually ever acknowledged, oh my God, I'm tired. Oh my God, I do way too much. Oh my God, I spend most of my life just giving and giving and giving, and I've never actually stopped to say, am I empty? I've never actually stopped to say, wait, am I actually giving so much to the degree that I'm making other people a thief? A lot of people have never got to that point in their life. So just commenting on that, number one, the last time I cried was the other day, yesterday. But I would just, as I say, I would just encourage you to really express your emotions, man. The whole point about life is you can't fully live life if you spend your life just basically blocking out your emotions. Because what really makes life worthwhile is emotion, right? It doesn't matter if I give you a Ferrari, but it means nothing to you. The thing that's missing is emotion, is the context, right? But if I give you, or you go and buy a Ferrari and you've spent the last 20 years trying to get that Ferrari, the Ferrari means something very, very, very different to you. Why? Because there's a story, there's context, there is a why attached to the very thing that you're achieving. And imagine working for 20 years, getting a Ferrari and having but it doesn't mean anything to you. This actually is a route why so many people end up being successful and unhappy, because they never attributed the success that they're going after to their emotional state. They never went after things which are meaningful, right? You guys know the two questions that I study is, how do you become successful? And the second question is, how do you do it without ending up divorced, without ending up killing yourself? And when you get there, end up basically getting there and I'm being unhappy. And part of the reason why I started pursuing that second question is I found so many people who'd achieved success, but they're unhappy. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You've got a family, you've got a missus, you've got children who are healthy, happy, go to great schools, are doing well. You've got great friends, you get to go on holiday, you can travel anywhere you want in the world, your mortgage is being paid off, you've got a really great pension which is coming your way. Why in the world are you depressed? Why in the world are you feeling suicidal? What's going on with you? And part of the reason is that the person went after a life that wasn't their life. It didn't mean anything to them. And I guess the thing that I would share with you and ask you to think about this week is, think about the things that you're going after in your life at the moment. Do they mean anything to you? Because if you get them and they don't mean anything to you, you would have basically wasted the last 30 years of your life, the last 20 years of your life, the last 10 years of your life going after something which has no gratification. It has no fulfillment. You know that word fulfillment? Fulfillment means to feel full, fulfillment. To feel full means that you are full to the brim. There is nothing, you basically feel that there is nothing more that I could have done. This is the source of where, if you want to live a life which doesn't have regrets, this is the path that you have to follow, right? If you want to live a life where you have no regrets, you have to get to the point, you basically have to get to the end of your life and say, I feel full, I feel fulfilled, I did the best that I can, I went out there and I loved, my heart was broken, whatever, but I did the absolute best that I can with the life that I was given. And, you know, isn't that what I read? A really interesting book by a woman called, I can't remember the name of the woman, but it's called The 5 Regrets of Dying People. And in the book, the woman talked about the 5 regrets that basically dying people over a 20-year. This woman worked with people who essentially were in hospital. They knew whether they were going to die, and basically they said, look, I want to go back to my house, I want somebody to look after me in my own home, I don't want to be in a hospital. And so this woman, over a 20-year period, worked with all these people who were at the end of their lives, and she would write down things that they would say, and she would journal over it. And after like 25 years, she noticed, oh, these people all kept saying the same things. And the 5 regrets of dying people were, number 1, I wish I'd lived a life which was true to me, not the one that people expected of me. I wish I'd allowed myself to be happier. I wish I'd kept in contact with my friends. And I can't remember the last 2. But my point being is, can you see that there is a sort of a pattern with people who have regrets? One of which is, and is the first number, is number 1 in the book, is that I wish I'd lived a life which was true to me, not the one that people expected me to live. My question to you is, are you living a life which is true to you? The life that you're living at the moment, is this your life? Did you deliberately choose the life that you're living at the moment, or did you fall into it? I say to people all the time that one of the most life-defining days for a man is a day when he decides to either accept his fate or pursue his destiny. My question to you is, have you accepted the life in which you were born into, or are you going and are building the life that you want? That's the first question that I wanted to answer. Okay, so that then leads us onto the second question, which, or the second scenario, which is from a girl. She says, guys, do you care if a girl is bisexual? And it goes something like this. So I'm a girl who is bisexual. When I came out as bisexual, I was in a relationship with a guy, but he broke up with me because he found it weird dating a girl who was bisexual because he thought that it was wrong. Do you guys really care if a girl is bisexual? Firstly, I want to thank you very much for that question. I think it's a really courageous question. Secondly, the answer is yes, some guys do care. The truth of the matter is there are some people on this planet who do care about such things. They aren't interested in changing their worldview. They aren't interested in being somebody who is of that persuasion. It's funny, I went to see my dad yesterday. No, the day before yesterday, on Sunday. What day is it today? Tuesday, yeah. So on Sunday, I went to go and see my dad. And we were having a conversation about my granddad. So my granddad is a very liberal kind of man. He's very, show me the data, show me the statistics. And my dad is a very religious man. Right? My dad's a Muslim, very spiritual, very religious. And Dad was talking about granddad and how he's given my granddad a spiritual book. And me and my mum, we were saying to Dad, we said, look, Dad, granddad is never going to change. Okay, granddad, his entire life, he's always believed in he's an atheist. His grandmother, his mum, was an atheist. Granddad needs evidence. He needs proof. He needs show me all of the facts. Right? He's just that kind of person. And we were saying, me and Mum were saying to Dad that Granddad is happy with his life. He doesn't need to be spiritual. He doesn't need to believe in something higher. He's got a great marriage. His children are happy. His grandchildren are happy. He doesn't need to change and has no desire to be a spiritual person. And I was saying to him, you can keep trying and you can keep doing all these things, but he has no room in his life or desire to change. And what I would share with you is, obviously using that as a metaphor for your situation, is that I would share with you that there are some people who are perfectly happy with their lives. Okay? They have no desire to change whatsoever. For example, let's use me as an example. So obviously, you know that I give people advice on how to improve their lives, and I'm constantly saying to people, you should strive to become your highest, fullest expression of yourself. You should try your best to do all that you can do to help other people, to help your neighbor, to help your children. You should want to become the best human being that you can become. The reality of life is some people aren't fucking interested. As much as obviously what I'm saying, I think is a good thing and helps people out, some people don't give a shit. Some people don't want to change their life. Even if their life is in disarray, even if they're unhappy, even if they're depressed, or even if they don't believe in personal development, whatever, they just aren't interested in changing themselves. They're happy with the way that is. And I think firstly that you need to understand that. Some people, no matter how much you want to change them, they ain't going to change. There's a statement which I was journaling about, I think it was 3-4 months ago, which is that sincerity is not a test of truth. In other words, just because you're doing something good and you're living out your truth and you want to be positive and you want to be honest to yourself, it doesn't mean that people are going to support you, right? The first video I ever did, was a video which said, don't expect other people to support your dreams because they're not your dreams. In other words, if you decide that you want to live your truth, why should other people support you? It's your truth, not their truth. Let me also say this to you. I've always tried to share with people that when you decide to do as Michael Jackson said, which is that if you want to change the world, you got to start with yourself. You got to start by looking at the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror. That's all very nice for you, but that comes with a problem. Because when you decide, can you imagine, right? You've taken a mirror and you've started to look at yourself. When you start looking at yourself, everyone around you and beside you will also be able to see themselves in the mirror. Let me explain why this is relevant. There's a lot of people who've never even considered their sexuality. There's a lot of people who've never even considered what they like. It's never even occurred to them that they could be anything above being straight or being lesbian or being bisexual or being transsexual. It doesn't, these other options do not exist as far as they're concerned because it's just nothing they've really ever thought about. There's a guy called Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins says that the strongest force in the human psyche is the need to stay congruent with how we believe we are. In other words, if you think you're shy, you will do everything to behave like a shy person would. If you think you're vivacious and you're outgoing and you're laddish, guess what? You will behave in that way. Anything which is not consistent with that is where people get into depression, is where people get into hopelessness, is where people start feeling suicidal because they say, I don't even know who I am. Here's a problem. When you speak your truth and you decide that you want to be who you are, you start reflecting that onto other people. Basically, you start revealing to other people that there is different manifestations of sexuality which that they could look at. And that challenges people, right? People don't want to look at that kind of stuff. People aren't interested in that kind of stuff, especially if they're happy with who they are. And also, the other thing that you have to remember is, you know, and you wouldn't know this, but a lot of people live in denial about a lot of things, right? In fact, if you know, I think there is a cycle which goes something like when you lose something, the first thing that happens is you go into denial. Right? There's a reason for that. Most people, any time change happens, we go into denial. We don't want to accept it. We're not interested. I don't want to know. Don't tell me about it. That is how most people live their lives. They live their lives in denial. And what I would share with you is when you start deciding to be yourself, you do expose people. The next thing that I want to share with you is you will find somebody for you. Okay? There is God knows, almost 8 billion people on this planet. You will find somebody who wants you exactly the way that you are. You will find somebody who loves you and will accept you for exactly who you are. In fact, I would share with you that they're probably looking for you. They're looking for somebody who's exactly got your mindset, who's exactly that open. Right? Some people aren't open. You've heard of that you've got some conservatives and you've had liberals. Some people aren't interested in progressive, new age stuff. They aren't interested in that kind of stuff, right? Like some people, for example, I meet a lot of people who struggle a lot with religion because some people, they may be Christians or okay, let me give you an example of me. So I struggled a lot with myself, particularly around religion. Because I was raised up to be a Muslim. The issue is there are some things in Islam which I don't agree with. And there is some things in other religions that I absolutely love. Okay? Here's a problem. If you're a Muslim, you are told that you cannot really be looking at Taoism. You can't really be looking at Christianity, right? And it causes a lot of problems when you start looking at that. Because imagine being a Muslim and you start using biblical scripture, you start using Taoism, and you start reciting stories from Taoism, it confuses people, it causes conflict, people don't like it. It's like, well, what do you believe? Well, hold on a minute. People don't. Oh man, there was a comment that I wrote down here that I can't remember, but it's something on the lines, I was journaling about this, it's something on the lines of people don't like messy and people don't like complicated. If you look at the way the world is structured, the way the world is structured is essentially in black and white. You're either good or you're bad. Funnily enough, I'm due tomorrow to do a talk, and one of the things that I talk about, and in fact is how I begin the talk, is the talk is called the Power of the Underdog, and here's the first thing that I say. The first thing that I say in that talk is everything in life has led us to believe that you are either a villain or you're a hero. You're either a good person or you're a bad person. You're either evil and you're manipulative and you're fucked up, or you're amazing and you're good looking and you're successful. But most people aren't any of those, right? Most people are a little bit fucked up and a little bit wrong and make mistakes, but at the same time they're good people and they do have successes and they do have areas where they're confident, right? But if you just look at the world in terms of you either have to be the hero or the villain, most people aren't a freaking hero, right? Most people don't, they're not some ideal which everybody looks up to and everybody wants to become. Not everybody is a Beyonce, not everybody is an Adele, right? We're not like that, right? The average, most of us are more like that character Deadpool or Wolverine. We have faults, we want to do good things, but we have rage and we have anger and we have depression. And what I would share with you is you have to remember, when it comes to areas particularly of sexuality, religion, money, success, all of these areas are highly emotionally charged, and people have really strong beliefs about it, and people don't like grey areas in these areas. People prefer that you're either this or that. Okay, because when you start going into both, it confuses people, it causes conflict. So that's the last thing that I would share with you on that. But I would just ask you to consider those thoughts. But essentially, you will find somebody who is out there for you. But also remember that when you decide to live your truth, you're going to upset people. You just are. That's just the way the world works. So that's. I hope that helps you out, by the way. So that's the second one. The third one says this. It's entitled, Crying, What Do I Do? So he says, just found out that my dad has thrown out all my revision materials. I kept them all at my desk downstairs and needed them for now. He's now thrown it all out and is blaming me. I've got exams in less than 2 months, and all my paper revision materials taught me how to answer my questions. I'm self-studying, so now I don't know what to do. All right, well, firstly, I want to thank you very much for the question. And I want to begin off by saying I'm sorry, on behalf of your dad, I'm sorry. And I would say, I don't think that your father deliberately meant to throw the papers out. And so on behalf of your dad, I would apologize on his behalf, because I think sometimes, we can be so convoluted in our own world. We can be so busy with our problems. We can be so busy with what's happening in our own lives that sometimes we forget to look on the peripherals and realize that there is other people suffering, that other people have their own ambitions and their own intentions and their own desires, right? And one of the things that I've had to learn, particularly from people who've got divorced, is sometimes when you get divorced, in fact, I would say most of the time when you get divorced, because it happens, right? They say 50% of marriages are going to be successful, but that means 50% are going to divorce. And when you go through a divorce, a lot of people can be so enraged and they can be so angry at their partner. Because their partner has destroyed their entire reality, right? Imagine a woman who's her entire life, she's dreamt about getting married, she's dreamt about finding the one, she's dreamt about the dress, she's dreamt about the house, right? She's dreamt about being a stay-at-home mother, and 4 or 5 years into the marriage, the man says, I want to get divorced, I don't want to be with you anymore. The man has essentially just destroyed this woman's life, right? He went down the aisle and he promised her all these things, and she put 100% into the marriage, and now he's just walking away from his obligation, from his commitment. And it's very easy for us to say, well, he's selfish, but hold on a minute. Imagine being in a marriage where you're not happy. Imagine being in a marriage where you're not fulfilled. Isn't it more selfish and more damaging to be with somebody who you don't really love, right? Let's not get into that. But let me get to the point of what I'm saying. And what happens is, this woman, in the rage and the anger, she hates the man. She says, your father is a liar, he's a cheater, he's a bastard, he doesn't care. So in other words, she impresses upon her children all of the rage and emotional energy that she's experienced, forgetting that the experience that children have with their father is different to the relationship that the father and mother have. Does that make sense? So what essentially I've discovered is that it is possible for a man to be a cheater, a liar, a dickhead, a womanizer, but be a great father to his children. Now, hold on a minute. Now, I know you're thinking, well, yeah, but Cass is a cheater, is a liar. Hold on a minute. Who's perfect? Show me where these people are that are so perfect that they don't have any flaws, that they don't mess up, that they don't have areas of their life where they've made errors in judgment. All of us have made errors in judgment, right? And so what I would share with you is, on behalf of your dad, I apologize, but I would ask you to consider that maybe he's in his own world. Maybe he has his own problems. Maybe he's clearly got some issues that are going on that you're not aware of. Because if your dad is really a good father, one of the things that he will try to do is shield you from his problems, from his troubles, right? As a parent, you cannot give the burden of your problems onto your children. And if you do, well, let's not even get into the complications of that, right? Where you get children who are becoming like taking on the... Sometimes in my counselling, I will have situations where a woman gets divorced, and what happens is she then uses her son as essentially her new partner. Not sexually, but the son plays the role of what her partner is. So the son goes with her shopping. The son fixes the house. So she basically ends up relying on the son. And every single time the son wants to move out, or this is really fucked up, but this is the degree as to how dysfunctional some things will become. So some parents, you know what they will do? They will reward their son for doing things that is dependent on the mother. In other words, if the son goes out and he tries to buy a new car and he crashes the car, the mother will punish him. But if the son goes out and crashes the car, but then says, mother, actually, I'm going to stop that because I want you to drive me around, the mother will reward that. So what the boy does then is the boy goes through his entire life essentially being rewarded for relying on his mum. And it sounds crazy and it sounds selfish and mental, but you would be shocked at the amount of times this happens. Let's not go further into that rabbit hole because you don't need to know about that. Now, the other thing that I would share with you is start again. What do you mean, Cassim? I mean, go and start the notes again. If you've lost the notes, if your dad genuinely, you've looked around, you can't find them, you've asked him where they are, he said they're in the bin, they've gone, the bins have been collected, my thing to you is start again. And the reason I'm saying this to you is because this is going to teach you one of the principles about life, which is life is a disappointment. And it's horrible for me to tell you this at such a young age, but this is the reality of life. Life is all disappointment, okay? You're going to go into relationships, you're going to give your all in a relationship, and guess what? Someone's going to cheat, someone's going to dump you, the relationship's going to die out, you're not going to want the same things, and then you're going to have to go and start dating all over again. Guess what? You're going to say you're going to quit smoking, you're going to quit for 2 years. Something stressful is going to happen in your life, someone in your family is going to pass away, you have loads of stresses in your job, you go and get drunk and somehow you have a cigarette and now you're back in the smoking habit. Guess what? You're going to have to go and do the entire process of quitting smoking all over again. And that essentially is going to be your life. And in fact, how successful you become in your life is going to be determined by your ability to get up after failure. Right? Success is determined by this. Because we all know that, look, I think it's pretty much evident to say that nobody really gets anything the first time. You've got to kind of keep trying and give it a go and keep improving. So this is a great opportunity for you now to exercise that, to train your ability to get back up. In fact, I was writing some notes and journaling on a book that I'm due to write about how you can succeed leading up to from now until 2080. And one of the things that I said is that the people who are going to become the winners and the champions and the people who are going to be in positions of power and positions of influence are going to be the people who have the ability to adapt. In other words, let's say Facebook dies down and there's a new thing called TikTok. The people who are going to be able to survive and adapt are going to be the people who are going to be able to move over to TikTok the quickest, right? And actually, my generation, those of us who are kind of 25 or older, we complain that the new generation, they're constantly moving to new trends. If there's a new TikTok, they move to TikTok. If it's Bebo, they move to Bebo. But actually, the new generation, that is your greatest asset. Your ability to adapt, your ability to change, your ability to move quickly, that is what's going to allow you. Because we're living in a world which the late Peter Drucker called the era of the 3 C's. Which is accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. So the fact that you can change and adapt really quickly is actually going to be an advantage for you. So here's what I'm saying to you. Look at how long it takes you to rise from this fall, right? Because this is going to be really the test as to how successful you're going to be. Because if you do nothing now and you sit back and you say, well, it's my dad's fault, and you essentially do what everybody else in the world does, which is that whenever things go wrong, we blame everybody else and we alleviate the responsibility from ourselves, right? If you're going to do that, you're going to join the club that everybody else is in. If you want to be different, this is what you do. You say, look, things can happen. Clearly, my dad probably didn't mean to intentionally do it. And if he did intentionally mean to do it, what can I do? I can't exactly stop him. But I can go back again. I can redo the notes. Yes, it's going to be effort. I'm probably going to have to give up going out. I'm going to have to give up being on Facebook and being on Instagram. But I'm going to focus because I know this is important to me and I want to do well, right? But this time, I'm going to ensure that my notes are put in a place where nobody can throw them away. Everybody in this house is going to know how important this is to me. They're going to know where they are. That's what makes a difference between the winners and the losers in society. Literally, that is it. Some people, when they hit a roadblock, they stop and they say, I'm not interested. But the people who win, every time they hit a roadblock, they say, okay, well, let me go over this. Let me go around this. Let me lift it up. Let me run and then jump over it. Let me put a bench over it. They're like water. They just keep freaking going around shit. And they keep, you can't stop water. You can hold it for a minute, but eventually water will just keep coming and coming and coming. Become like water is what I would share with you. Okay, so that's that one. So, and I hope that's useful for you, by the way. And good luck in your exams. You're going to do well. I know you are. And also breathe. Okay, breathe. Breathing helps. Okay, so the next one that we've got here says, I need help. For context, I'm 14. Recently, my great aunt died at age 84. She was basically my granny since my gran died. It was hard because we couldn't see her and I was obviously upset. Her funeral is coming up and there's a limit of 18 people. So me and my dad, her nephew, can go. I would really like to go, but this is the first time going to a funeral. I'm pretty sure I've done all my crying, but what if the funeral is very upsetting and I start crying? When I cry, it is very noticeable. I go red and gross and I don't want to cause a scene. What should I do? Is a funeral very upsetting? What would you do in my situation? Thank you. Well, I would firstly start off by sending my condolences to you. I'm really sorry about your great aunt. It's always sad losing anyone. I was doing some research on pain, and we found that there are two pains which cause more pains than any other pain to the brain psychologically. The first is losing a partner, okay? And what I would say is, so losing a husband or like a wife, that's basically the highest level of pain that anyone can ever experience. When you lose your partner, your best friend, that is the highest. And I was shocked because I thought that maybe losing your mum or your dad would be the highest. But according to the data, the one that causes the most heartache, the most anxiety, the most stress, the most pain, according to the data, is losing a partner. And the second one is going through a divorce. Going through a divorce is the second thing that causes you most amount of pain. But for you, what I would say is this really is on the same degree as losing a partner, is like losing a partner. Because I've come to understand in life that when someone dies, we all lose, but we don't lose the same amount. Somebody could die and they could be my next door neighbor and I cared about them and we had banter and we had great memories together, but I have not lost the same or to the same degree as their children, the neighbor's children have lost, right? And what I would share with you is the tearing of your heart, the pain, the longing that you feel is really to the same degree as losing a partner. And I can only apologize to you. And there isn't really very much that I can really say apart from, unfortunately, this is life, right? And actually, I would share with you that the beauty about this is that your great aunt managed to live until age 84, right? That's a pretty impressive age. And do you know what one of the great things that she had in your life, in her life? She had you. She had you in her life. I cannot explain to you the great joy it is to have somebody in your life who is younger than you and who looks up to you. You can feel it. There's an energy when I didn't really understand this because I kept being around people who were like in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they would be they would say things that I didn't really understand. They would say things like, "Oh, I feel younger when I'm around young people," and I was like, "How the hell can you feel younger when you're around young people?" But what I began to notice was that when I started coaching people who were younger than me and they started looking up to me and they looked for advice, young people have an innocence. Young people vibrate on a different frequency. Their energy is infectious. You can actually feel it, right? It's like being around. It's like being at a concert. It's very difficult to be at a concert and be depressed because the energy and the atmosphere is lifted by everybody who's at the festival, right? And being around people who are younger, like yourself, I guarantee you that you were perhaps one of the greatest joys that your great aunt had in her life. So it's really a testament to the impression that you made in her life. And you were probably one of the great, the great accomplishments who should be in her life that she managed to have. Because guess what? You have just shown that you are a great human being by commenting on this, right? I can already tell the way you've written this, the empathy that you have, the perspective that I mean, listen to the way that you've talked about this. You talk about, this is intellectually, already I can tell you're a very good person. You talk about the fact that you recognize that, number one, you're an ugly crier. We're all ugly criers. I'm an ugly crier. Chill. You recognize that other people is going to be their day too, and you don't want to make a fuss and you don't want it to be about them, right? Most people wouldn't say that. Most people would say, well, it was my great aunt and I meant the most to her, and I should be able to do this and I should be able to do that, and I want to be able to, and everybody should be able to. Your level of insight, your level of clarity is really, truly, your level of strength, actually, right, is really something which I find really inspirational. Can I just say that? I think, a lot of people, when we lose people, we break down. Life essentially ceases to have any meaning. It ceases to have any energy. And if you've been raised correctly, if somebody raised you, like clearly your great aunt must have raised you to be a good human being, that person can sit in the pain, can sit in the hurt, but also be strong, but also do whatever is necessary. Let me tell you why I say this. Obviously, you're young and you're not going to do this, but can you imagine losing somebody, but you are so much in pain that you become an alcoholic, that you stop paying your bills, you stop going to work? This is the level that some people go to when they lose somebody who's important to them. But when you've been raised properly in a loving family with the right people around you, you understand not only wisdom, which clearly you have, right? You have the ability to look at things from loads of different perspectives, but you also you're in touch with your emotions, and you get that it's important to cry, it's important to grieve, right? It's important to go through that process where you recognize that you have lost somebody. And I just love the fact that you've been able to recognize that. I would also share with you that, look, we are obviously in a really tight situation. What can you do? This is the law. These are the rules. These are the restrictions that everybody is in. And what I would share with you is, you are going to cry at the funeral. You will do. If your great aunt meant the most to you, you probably are going to cry. But the other thing that I would share with you is you might not. You might not cry at a funeral. There is no right way to grieve, because all of us grieve in different ways. So if you go to the funeral and everybody's crying but you're not crying, it doesn't mean that you didn't care about your great aunt. It's interesting because, I was speaking to somebody, actually, weirdly, I think it was 2-3 days ago, and we were talking about, no, it was my dad, actually, that's what we were talking about. I was talking to my dad, and me and dad, we were talking about grieving and people who passed away, and my dad was saying to me that sometimes some people feel that if they stop crying or if they stop grieving, that it's a sign that they no longer love somebody, right? If somebody passes away and they no longer can cry anymore, or they can... Let me tell you why this came about. So, I work with a woman. Her name is Hina. Hina lost her father about a month ago. She took 2 weeks off work, and she had the 2 weeks off, but she'd come back into work. I said, Hina, why are you here? And the reason why I said that to Hina is because Hina was just crying, right? She was walking around the shop and she was just crying every day. And I was like, Hina, why are you here? Go home. And Hina said to me, I can't be at home, because if I'm at home, I break down and I'm just sad, and my mum's sad. And I was selling this to my dad, and my dad was saying to me that, Cass, you have to understand that sometimes for some people, when they stop crying and when they stop going through the grieving process, they can interpret that as though, well, I don't love the person anymore, right? That actually the person clearly didn't mean as much to me because I've stopped crying or I've stopped grieving. And what I would share with you is there is no right way to grieve, right? If you grieve and you get over your grief in 6 months, fine. If it takes you a year, fine. There is no time limit. Stop putting expectations on your emotional energy and how you should be processing your emotions. You're 14 years of age. You're about to go through your teenage years. Your emotions are going to be all over the place. All over the place. And I would ask you to just be you. Okay? People will understand, especially if they knew what you aren't meant to you. What else did you say to you? What should you do? What should you do? Just follow everyone around you. Follow everyone around you, right? They'll show you what to do. But what I would share with you is, don't feel like you have to behave in a certain way. Don't feel like you have to act in a certain way because everybody is acting that way. That's all I would share with you, and I hope that that is useful to you. Thank you very, very much for the question. All right, so that leads us to the final question, which is question number 5, which says, I feel sick every time someone says that they like me. And it goes something like this. I'm a girl and I'm 19. For the whole of my life, ever since primary school, anytime a guy has said that they like me or showed that they were interested in me, I would freak out and stop talking to them and have this really sick feeling in my stomach as if I'm about to throw up. It's not a feeling I can help at all. I just don't know what to do instead I run away. I just don't know what to do, so instead I run away. It's safe to say I've never done anything with a guy, yet as any time it gets anywhere close to that, I cut him off, and it's happened on many occasions. Is this normal? So firstly, thank you very much for your question. I really appreciate your courage and your bravery. I would start off by saying outright, what do you mean by normal? What exactly do you mean by is that normal? There is no such thing as normal, right? Particularly when it comes to the art of living. We know, I very strongly believe that there are two aspects to life. There's what I call the A to Z, which is basically, this is what I want, and then you go to get it, right? We know that if somebody's already got what you want, you can if you follow the same similar steps that they've done, you can get similar to getting there. If you take the same similar steps that they have, you will get similar results. The other part of life is what I call the art of living. The art of living is about, on your way to getting what you want, the journey and what you experience is going to be different from other people. So when you, for example, and let me, I'm going to be blunt with you, and I'm going to be, because this is important that I speak to you about this. You talk about the fact that it's safe to say that I haven't done anything with a guy. I hope you haven't done anything with a guy, because clearly you aren't ready. So I would say to you that there is no time limit on when you should be ready. There is no time limit on whether, you should be allowing somebody to touch you or you shouldn't be touching you. It's up to you when you determine that, because it's your life and it's the way that you believe it is for you, right? Forget about losing your virginity. Forget about having your first kiss. Forget about that whole process of I should be married by 30, I should have children by this age. All of that is things that the world is going to try to put on you. You have to determine for yourself what success is, and more importantly, you have to determine for yourself the way in which you wish to live your life and the standards that you want to set for your life. Nobody else should be telling you about any of this stuff. So I would like to highlight, there is no such thing as normal. Normal is whatever you think is normal, not what people tell you is normal. Let me also say this. I'm really sorry that obviously you're in this situation where you feel that you can't really allow guys to touch you. What I would do if I was in your shoes is I would just begin to explore it, actually. And I don't mean explore it in terms of finding out what's wrong with you. No, I would ask to figure it out and look at this and to try and examine it from a point of view of, let me look at where this is coming from. What does it mean? What's my interpretation of it? Why is it that I feel that this is a problem? This is where journaling now comes in, right? I encourage most people to journal. You want to begin to really examine your life, learn from your life, all right? I say to people all the time that everything that happens to you in your life is there to teach you something about you. So you want to essentially try to figure out, what is this teaching you about you? Maybe this is teaching you that you're not really a touchy-feely kind of person. You might perhaps come from a friendship group or from a peer group or from a family where there's a lot of touching. My sister said to me, Cassim, I'm not really a touchy-feely kind of person. And the reason why is because we were talking about the fact that my mum is not really a huggy feeling. My mum just isn't like that, right? But I'm a very touchy, feely, huggy kind of person. And my sisters, we were talking about this, and my sisters were like, yeah, I'm not really a touchy, feely kind of person, but with mum, but I am with other people. And what I learned from my sisters is there isn't really any right way. There's just your way. And maybe this is teaching you that you're just not really a touchy person with people who you don't expect to be maybe your future partner or somebody who means a lot to you, right? And the other thing is, if I was in your shoes, is I would begin to let me put it this. I want to try and put this in the best way possible that I can. I believe the human contact is really important if you wish to connect with people. I think there is something about holding someone's hand. There is something about hugging somebody. Obviously, you're 19, so I can say this to you, but there is an element of connectivity in intimacy, right? And what I would share with you is that when you are ready, and when you feel that you're ready, and obviously that you have to determine for yourself, I think that if you wish to live the highest forms of living, at some point, there is something which you would like, I would recommend to you that you look at. Now, obviously, what I would share with you is, firstly, you need to be looking at the emotional side. Where is this coming from? Why do you feel like this? Where is it being driven? Did something happen in your childhood? So actually, what I would do is I'd go to a therapist. That's where I would go, right? I would go and speak to a therapist. 80 quid, have a chat with them. Where do you think this is coming from? And the other thing is I'd start journaling about it. Easy things that you can do. None of these are complicated. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be a billionaire. These are simple things that you can do. But I think that they will start you on that journey. I don't know if I've kind of answered your question. This is a very heavy question to get into, because really you need to start going to counseling and therapy with this kind of question, because what I can share with you from a counseling perspective is that what you're experiencing is a product of something which is happening internally. Whenever essentially someone touches you or you get really close to somebody, it triggers an emotion within you. So that emotion is where you need to basically go and source. What is that emotion? And that may mean you might have to do hypnotherapy or whatever it is. I don't know. You have to go and look at that yourself. You need to go and look at where is that originating from, because that emotion is basically what you. Earlier on I said to you that everything that happens to us is there to teach us something. That emotion is trying to tell you that there is something about when people touch you that evokes something which isn't right. Right? And let me put this in a different way. So when you get a headache, the headache is not the problem. The headache is telling you that there is an imbalance, or there is something that is missing in your body. You are either doing too much of something or you're doing too little of something. And so the headache is your way of saying to you, pay attention, something isn't right. So the fact, your reaction to don't touch me, I don't want to be touched, and your reaction to pushing people away is saying to you that there is something deeper which needs to be dealt with that you haven't dealt with yet. And remember, I've shared with you before that emotions are time travelers, right? If you haven't forgiven somebody, you can't pretend that you've forgiven them. The emotion hasn't gone away. It's still there. If you're really angry at somebody, even if you love them, the emotion of anger hasn't gone away until you heal it, right? Metaphorically speaking, it's like if you put a plaster on a wound, the wound hasn't healed. It's just stopped the bleeding, but the wound itself hasn't healed. And that is essentially what I'm saying to you. You want to go and figure out, why did I have the cut in the first place? What happened? What led up to me getting this cut? I guarantee you that there is a pattern, there is a series of events that happen that lead to you getting to the point where you push people away. The thing that you want to begin to look at, or the counsellor or the therapist or whoever you go to will help you do, is determine what are those steps. But the easiest way to start is to begin to journal, right? Begin to reflect on your life. What keeps happening? So if I keep pushing all these guys away, something must happen. Are we kissing? Are we in his house? Are we hugging? Has he said something to me? There is a pattern that has occurred. And you want to figure out, okay, number one, what's from the kissing, let's work backwards to the source of it. And when you change the source, when you change the foundation, when you change the roots, everything else just branches out and changes in itself. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope my metaphors that I've used there make sense. But as I say, the question is a very loaded question and is quite a complex question. But I hope that has helped you out. So that's it, guys. I want to thank you very much for watching this week's episode. I hope you found it useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel Cassimotive if you want to join our community. That's where we put most of the content and the broken down versions of this. But apart from that, I want to thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye for now.